I'm Sue O'Connell. Tonight on Greater Boston, another day on strike. We'll hear from a Hollywood writer and former union president on why TV and film writers have walked off the job, how studios are responding, and what this means for your favorite shows. Then, an inside look at the fight to save the right whale from extinction in the latest documentary from Nova. It could be a long summer of reruns, reality TV, and, I don't know, maybe reading a book. The TV Writers Union, the Writers Guild of America, is on strike. The contract negotiations failed with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, a group of more than 300 TV and film networks and production companies. That includes Netflix, HBO, and ABC. Members of the Guild say executives refuse to meet key demands for fair wages and job security.
Better pay and better writing conditions. They need to be able to support their families, pay their rent, have better conditions in the workplace. I came up at a time where we could do that, and I want that for these young people.
The middle class of writers has fallen out, and it's become harder for people like me to move up the rungs of the entertainment industry.
The odds are so stacked against you, and they frankly don't need to be.
Studios have pushed back, citing industry-wide budget concerns and recent layoffs at major companies like Disney and Warner Brothers. So what does this mean for the writers who've walked off the job? And how will this play out for those of us watching or not watching at home and on our phones, right? I'm joined now by Patric, Verrone, former president of the Writers Guild of America West and an award-winning television writer with dozens of credits, including The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson's, The Simpsons, and Futurama Plus. Nerissa Williams Scott, CEO and owner of TCGT Entertainment in Boston, and a member of the communications faculty at Emerson College, and Dominic Patten, senior editor at Deadline, who's been covering the strike. Welcome to all of you. Let's start with you, Dominic. Tell us what the latest is on the strike.
Well, I mean, what we're seeing is, and our other guests can speak to this as well, I'm sure, we're on day 3 now of what is clearly looking like potentially a very long strike. I spoke to an executive just when the strike was called by the WGA late on Monday going into Tuesday, becoming effective. And he said to me he thought this was going to be shorter than 1988, longer than 2008, which of course was 100 days. There's some very big issues here. Out on the streets of LA and New York, we've been covering the picket lines at the various studios and facilities. In some places, we're seeing now the Teamsters are not crossing certain picket lines, which is a thing they can do in their contract. Individual Teamsters can do that. Very strong words, very strong support. And I will say even more so, and Patrick knows this because he was out. There was a little bit of rain in LA today, and usually rain in LA washes everything away. It seemed to make the picket lines even stronger and louder.
Patrick, can you break down for us exactly what it is that you're not getting and why the strike happened?
Well, fundamentally, what we didn't get was a conversation on the important issues that we needed to engage with the studios. There were several issues that they did engage on, what I would describe as traditional increases to minimums and some of our residuals. They were able and willing to talk about those things. But there's been a fundamental shift in the way writers have been hired, particularly in streaming over the last half dozen years. And that change has resulted in a change in the way that we feel the structural change needs to happen in the way that we're employed and paid. They didn't want to talk about that at all. And then the other issue that I'm sure your viewers are somewhat and getting more familiar with is artificial intelligence and AI. And the Writers Guild has a very strong position that we believe that writing should be done by human beings. And the companies, again, were very resistant to talk about that issue.
Nerissa, my understanding as a layperson and just a viewer on this is that the concerns also are when we're watching streaming shows, often there are fewer episodes. So even though maybe in the negotiations in the past you might have made more money or had a better deal, there are fewer episodes. So in the end, you're making less because the seasons are shorter. And the streaming services, you're not necessarily getting the residuals that you might if I'm watching something on broadcast television that is in reruns. reruns. Is that true?
Absolutely. There are shorter episodes now. They call it limited series. And so then you have people who only have 4 episodes as opposed to 13. That's the standard. And when you have that, then what happens when it's on the streaming service and it's watched over and over and over again? And they are able to determine those analytics. They can tell you how many times someone has watched that show. Are they giving that information to the union? Are they telling them your show has been watched 15 times in 1 hour or 150 times? Because we're talking global here. It's not just here in the United States. And so when you have that, it's being able to determine how many times over how long of a period. Normally in broadcast TV, those episodes would only last for a season, and then it would go in another season. And by the time you've hit it 5 years, okay, in maybe 10 years, you go back to reruns. However, with streamers, it could be ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. And so the writers, we're standing with them. They deserve to be paid for those.
Patric, some people would argue and push back a little bit and say, look, no one knows what's happening with AI. We're all in this brand new frontier. It's exponentially growing. We have no idea when it's going to be hitting us and how it's going to be hitting us. We're all going through job changes. NBC's laying off folks, NPR's laying off folks. Why is a restriction on some or a hold on some salaries? Why is that out of line with what's happening in the rest of the industry and other industries?
Well, first of all, let me analogize what we're doing now regarding AI to what the Writers Guild did in 2007 and 8 when I was president of the Guild and we went on strike for 100 days over what we then called new media, which we now know as streaming. We didn't know what it was going to be. At the time, people thought, well, maybe this will just be like CB radios or something. There wasn't a business model. There wasn't anything that we could all rely on as saying this is how we should be paid, this is how we should be employed. And so we had our proposals and the discussions we ultimately had with the studios had to, they were open-ended enough. We ended up getting jurisdiction so that there would be an ongoing dialogue about those conditions. The same thing is happening with AI to the extent that we also don't know how it's going to be used. But we do know, because one of the executives negotiating for the company said the quiet part loud, that they don't want to restrict themselves from doing or using a technology that they may need in the future. So the implication is they want to be able to use AI, and we want to be able to build fences about it. We want to be able to make sure that fundamentally the writing belongs to a human being, that it belongs to a writer, and that that's where the creative force begins.
Let's hear from Adam Conover, who's a TV writer and showrunner and host on CNN. He was on CNN Tuesday discussing the discrepancy between what we're talking about and how much executives are making.
David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, which is, the parent company of the network I'm talking to you on right now, was paid $250 million last year, $250 million. That's about the same level as what 10,000 writers are asking him to pay all of us collectively. These companies are making enormous amounts of money. Their profits are going up. It's ridiculous for them to plead poverty.
Dominic, this is a great argument, and it would be true for almost every industry. And here in the United States, we don't have a cap on how much CEOs can make. Is this an argument that's going to have any legs?
I don't think that. I think Adam is making a good comparison, and I think the math is pretty strong, and you can't disagree with it. Look, Patrick, I hope you'll back me up, and I hope your other guests will too. I don't think anybody disagrees that writers are not being paid enough. There's been an argument out there that, oh my God, look at all the money we're paying now to writers. But that's because there's so many shows, there's so many platforms. So of course your numbers are going up. But when you look at, on average, what writers are making, what used to be a pathway to a middle-class lifestyle, as you mentioned in the opening segment, that's simply disappearing for the vast majority of WGA members. And look, I'm a journalist. I stand on the fence on this, but the numbers are real. So when you talk about the kind of money here, I'm going to give out an example. Patrick, please correct me if I'm wrong. But the WGA sent out the night that they called the strike some information of where both sides were in this. Ultimately, what they were looking at was about $429 million overall. The studios were offering $86 million, 48%, by the way, which was simply an increase in minimums. So that's the discrepancy in the money we're talking about. We talk about AI, the Guild was talking about regulating it, keeping it in the contract, and obviously the human component being primary. The studios, they wanted to have a meeting once a year about new technologies, which I guess means like, look, I bought a new iPhone. I don't know. So this element of this discussion, the studios are always going to plead poverty. They did it in 2017. They did it in previous ones. They did it in 2008. And yes, Disney is cutting 7,000 jobs. Other people are cutting jobs. They're cutting content costs. They're consolidating content costs. But as Adam said in that clip from CNN, again, the numbers don't lie. They are making great profits. If they have made some bad business decisions in terms of streaming and what have you, that's part of capitalism. And I think all of them like being capitalists. The reality is a lot of this is being done by them to keep their stock up, to keep Wall Street hedge fund managers happy. What's actually happening to the people who are creating this content, and again, I stand on the fence, but the reality is they are not making enough money. Patric knows this as a WGA leader, and I'm sure others do too. I know writers that I've spoken to who work on what would be considered hit shows on streaming. And that transparency issue is huge, by the way. They have to get second and maybe third jobs to pay their rent regularly and mortgages. That is not what we call hooray for Hollywood.
Nerissa, I want to talk about the other challenge here for a number of people who are new to the writers' room, women, black and brown people, people representing other constituencies that have not been allowed to participate in the writing process or the content process. What's the feeling within those communities about how this strike would impact?
Well, it is, as they say, it all rolls downhill, right? And so when it starts rolling, it's like, okay, do we get out of the way or do we stay where we are? And sometimes, especially, we have new voices. We have women of color. We have LGBTQIA. We have so many different shows that are coming down the pike, as we call it, that I think it's imperative that people begin to realize that these people who are representing the predominant class in the WGA, they need to have a voice for the LGBTQI and the BIPOC community. We're just starting to get in there, and then all of a sudden, it's a strike. And we want to make sure that we keep with the human factor. Don't forget about the human factor. I think that's what the main argument is, in my opinion, is that we're forgetting about people have families, they have lives. They're not asking for the world, they're just asking to be paid a living wage. And I don't see anything wrong with that. That's quite honestly something that we in the LGBTQIA and BIPOC community have been asking for years. This is the lane that we've been in for a very long time, and we're happy to join in where they're trying to raise that voice. Absolutely.
So, Patric, to the important question, how does this impact my viewing? What's going to happen? What am I going to get to watch?
You know, before I get to that, I do want to capitalize on what Nerissa was saying, that the advent of streaming and the broadening of both the audience and the production facilities to writers of color, BIPOC members of the community, everybody suddenly was being invited to a place at the table. Unfortunately, that place at the table was more along the lines of the gig economy, that they would only hire you when they needed you. They would only hire you for the time that they needed you. And there's been a real trend within this business of hiring writers of color, women, LGBTQ community members who were entry level and who were hired only because there were requirements to hire those writers. And as they were joining the community of successful writers, all of a sudden the bar got lifted and there became a separation between people in the writer's room and then writers in production. Because of the method of production for streaming, you write the shows now, and then weeks later, sometimes months later, you go into production. And the writers who were in that original room don't necessarily get invited. So you have this new entry-level assortment of writers who didn't rise up the ladder. And unfortunately, it has been, I don't want to say overwhelmingly, but inappropriately, previously I don't want to say unwelcome, but writers who hadn't been in that room
that might actually be the word. That's okay. It's actually the word.
I didn't want to say it. So how does it affect your viewing? All right. Well, first of all, you're going to see the late night shows disappearing, or at least going into reruns. Saturday Night Live this week is going to be a rerun. I suspect that, and I don't know because they haven't announced it yet, but the announcements of what the fall TV lineup is in broadcast will either be delayed or potentially canceled because they just don't know what they're going to be able to produce for broadcast. It's hard to say otherwise because, in the streaming era, in an era where people do their own programming, there isn't there's stuff that's in the can, as it were, or there's stuff that's been on the shelf, and people can go back and binge everything I've ever written. Is out there somewhere, and you can go rewatch that if you want.
And by the way, Pat, can you tell me who's going to win the presidential election since you've worked on The Simpsons? I just want to, do you have a prediction?
The Simpsons takes no credit for Donald Trump.
All right,
fine. So I don't know that they want to say again.
You quickly?
Yes, I just want to say also, too, it also affects the jobs that are outside of just being in LA and in New York. Here in Boston, we make movies, and if we aren't able to get writers to make the films, then we can't hire producers and directors and PAs and set designers and people behind the camera. It's a trickle down, and it's an effect that will reverberate for a very long time.
Thank you to all of you for joining me.
Where trickle-down economy does work.
Yeah.
Patric, Verrone, Nerissa Williams Scott, and Dominic Patten, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next up, we're in a race against time to save the North Atlantic right whale.
We have this critically endangered whale species right off the eastern seaboard of the United States and Canada. Like, barely anybody knows about it. And they're dying at a rate that's greater than the entire species reproduction.
We have a very limited view on right whales. They're dealing with an ecosystem that is very hard to figure out.
Virtually predator-free with a life expectancy of 70 years, the dramatic dip in the right whale's population has been perplexing for scientists for years. Their population fell 30% in just a decade, dropping from 39 recorded births in 2009 to 0 in 2018. And now, fewer than 350 of these creatures remain on the planet. And scientists say they could be extinct within 20 years. But a dedicated team of marine biologists and rescuers are on the Cape, and they are determined to keep that from happening. Their efforts are the focus of a new documentary from Nova called Saving the Right Whale. I'm joined now by the film's producer, Nadine Pequeneza, and one of the voices we just heard from, Dr. Charles Stormy Mayo, senior scientist and director of the Right Whale Ecology program at the Center for Coastal Studies in Provincetown. Welcome to both of you. Congratulations, Nadine, on the episodes. I want to start with you, Stormy. I know this is kind of the broad question and the whole point of it, but what do we think is happening? Why can we not get enough information to make changes to help these whales?
Well, I think the principal difficulty we have across almost all of the issues that we confront is that these whales are extraordinarily rare, and they live in a huge ecosystem. And so the encounters that we have with them when we're trying to study them are really few and far between, except for a few locations, ones that were featured in the film. Cape Cod Bay, where I do my work, is really a remarkable research space. But there are other locations where they indeed have been studied, the coast of Florida, as we saw, and now up in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. That said, the whales are so rare and the habitat so large and really not well known, areas of great ocean space where we just have little information. We don't know that they're there, and we don't know what they're doing. So it's really that underpins our difficulty in understanding them.
So, Nadine, obviously the challenges in researching the right whale also would be the challenge in making a production about a right whale and the extinctions and the work to save them. Talk to me about how you approached this project.
Yeah, it was indeed a challenge for all of the reasons that Stormy just talked about. We really didn't know if we were going to be able to get the footage that we needed to introduce people to the North Atlantic right whale because they're so rare. Many people have never seen this whale or even have heard about it. And so just trying to get access to be able to work with the scientists, people like Stormy, and Barb Zudzema, someone else we worked with down in the calving area, and Moira Brown up in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. I mean, we really had to work with scientists so that, one, we would have the information we needed that we wanted to impart in the film, but also just to be able to film with the whales.
Stormy, how is the right whale different from other species? I know that's a broad question, but from what we generally know, the layperson about whales.
Yeah, well, they look different, they act different, they feed differently, they calve in a different area. They're different in all respects. These are whales more closely related to the bowheads that sometimes we see on PBS shows. The bowhead of the Western Arctic. They are animals that feed on plankton, unlike most of the species that we have in New England waters, for instance, that feed on various fishes. So humpbacks, fin whales, minke whales that we would see maybe on a whale watch or off the shore are fish feeders. So they feed differently. They really are, in all respects, very different looking, acting, behaving animals than are the whales that most of us are more used to seeing.
Nadine, what did you learn as you were working on this? Was there a preconceived notion that you had going into this, or something surprising that you learned about the right whale?
Well, we filmed something that, maybe I should start with something on a happier note. One of the things that I learned while I was making the documentary is that, the scientists have been following the whales for many years. They have a catalog that surpasses, I think, any other species in terms of studying, where they travel, how they use the areas they're in, and they can identify individual whales because of the callosity patterns on their head. And so you have very unique information about individuals. And so what scientists are starting to see is that even within generations, so it seems to be information that somehow is passed down through lineage. Whales will have a preference about where they choose to feed, or even where moms and calves will nurse. I mean, obviously there's a particular ground where the calving ground is off the coast of Florida and Georgia, where they'll go to have their calves and then nurse them in the initial months. And some of the mothers, they like to hang out in particular areas. So the scientists have been able to document and record that over generations, which I found very interesting.
Stormy, our relationship with animals in general, I think, and our expectation of what we project on them has changed in our lifetime. I was just recently talking with my daughter about our pet dogs and how her relationship and how we treat our pets is very different than how my family and my parents treated our pets in the 1960s and the 1970s. Does that emerging recognition of them as beings help us when we're working towards saving them from extinction and understanding it? I guess it's a long way of saying, are you cautiously optimistic that we're on the right path?
Relative to the saving of right whales, I'm not particularly optimistic. There doesn't seem to be anything obvious that leads to optimism. I do think, though, on your earlier part of your question, we save whales because we think of them as sentient beings with I think we give them emotions and intelligence. We're probably stretching our knowledge a lot when we make those comments, but because people have gained this very special sense of right whales in particular, but in all whales, there has been this move to save them. And so I think a lot have been saved because of that. I'm not sure it's well placed. We don't really understand these animals. They're not creatures that we really do understand. We have enough trouble understanding the intelligence of our pets, let alone these creatures that most of us have never seen and will never see. But I'm happy to have people, if it is a mistake, thinking that they are smarter than humans and more sensitive and whatever, because it has led to their saving. The problem is there's a whole ecosystem out there. There is the great wide ocean, which for many of the animals doesn't have the kind of qualities that causes the saving that it does for right whales.
Well, I appreciate both of you. I highly recommend watching this. I'm really thankful that you joined us to talk about this today. Stormy and Nadine, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
You can watch Saving the Right Whale right now at pbs.org/Nova. That's it for tonight, but come back tomorrow for Talking Politics. On Talking Politics, CNN is holding a Trump town hall next week, and they plan to treat him like any other candidate. Is that really the right move? Plus, is Mayor Wu's approach to mass and CAS working? That and more tomorrow at 7. Thanks for watching. I'm Sue O'Connell. Good night.